June is the month many gardeners unknowingly sacrifice a large portion of their August harvest while their plants still look perfectly healthy. Everything looks productive. That's exactly why June is dangerous. Most harvest losses start now, weeks before gardeners notice anything is wrong. Tomatoes are flowering, peppers are loaded with buds, cucumbers are climbing without any help. The beds have that deep, full green that tells you the season is working. And then August arrives and the harvest is now half of what you expected. Not because something went wrong in August, because something went wrong in June, quietly, while the plants were still telling you everything was fine. That gap between what the plant shows and what it's actually building is the whole problem with this month. The visible symptoms of a bad harvest come weeks after the actual damage. By the time you see yellowing leaves or thin fruit set, the decisions that caused it are already history. And the first place to check isn't the leaves, it's the flowers. Most growers assess plant health by the foliage. Green, firm, upright leaves feel like good news, and they often are. But in June, when temperatures start climbing past the mid-80s during the day and nights stay above 70 degrees Fahrenheit, many tomato varieties begin struggling with fruit set as heat builds. Heat reduces pollen viability and makes successful fruit set less likely. The flowers open, look perfectly normal, and drop off without forming anything. The leaves above them remain lush and green for another 2 or 3 weeks. The plant looks healthy, the harvest is already compromised. This is the core June problem, and it doesn't announce itself. You won't find a wilted stem or a spotted leaf to alert you. You'll find small, dry, fallen petals at the base of the plant, and most gardeners sweep past them without a second thought. One quick way to check. Press a freshly opened tomato flower between your fingers and look at what transfers to your skin. Healthy pollen is yellow, slightly dusty, and sticks. Heat-damaged pollen is pale and transfers almost nothing. If you're running this check in the morning on 3 or 4 flowers and getting no real pollen release, your plants are likely losing fruit set right now, regardless of how healthy the canopy looks. Many pepper varieties begin dropping flowers more frequently once temperatures remain above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The plant doesn't slow down visually, it just stops converting flowers into fruit. Repeated flower drop in hot weather is one of the clearest early signs of heat stress. Shade cloth rated at 30% light reduction, applied over the most sun-exposed plants during peak afternoon hours, keeps the flower zone several degrees cooler and often improves fruit set noticeably during heat waves. It's not a complicated fix. It's a physical barrier placed exactly where the temperature damage actually happens. Now, why do some plants sail through the same heat event while others lose most of their flowers? The answer is almost always under the soil surface. Keep those roots moist through the top 18 inches and the plant stays hydrated during heat stress in a way that shallow roots simply cannot. Roots watered shallowly and frequently develop in the top 4 to 6 inches of soil. When the surface heats up in June, that shallow root zone heats with it. The plant starts pulling water from a zone approaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The stress is internal and invisible until it isn't. This is why 2 tomato plants growing side by side can react completely differently during the same heat wave. One keeps setting fruit. The other drops flowers for 2 weeks straight. Same garden, same weather, completely different roots. In many gardens, longer and deeper watering sessions a few times per week encourage deeper root growth better than brief daily watering. Daily light watering keeps the surface damp and keeps the roots shallow. These are not 2 versions of the same approach. They produce 2 completely different root systems, and in a hot June, those root systems behave very differently under pressure. 3 to 4 inches of straw, wood chips, or shredded leaves over the root zone keeps soil temperature from spiking during the afternoon. A bare soil surface in direct sun in June can reach 130 degrees Fahrenheit. 6 inches below a mulch layer, the temperature barely moves. A plant managing thermal stress in its root zone is a plant spending resources on survival rather than fruit production. A stable root zone is what frees the plant to perform above ground. Once that foundation is addressed, the next vulnerability shifts above ground, and it's one most gardeners misread consistently. Leaves turning pale, developing faint stippling, or curling slightly under from the edges are often treated as nutrient problems. The assumption is logical. The plant looks like it needs feeding. Calcium, magnesium, a general fertilizer push. But in June, that same visual picture frequently indicates spider mites, and the two responses are opposite. I learned this the hard way after feeding what I thought was a nutrient-deficient tomato bed. A week later, the leaves looked worse because the real problem wasn't fertilizer. It was spider mites. Fertilizer on a plant with an active mite population accelerates the mites. It does nothing for the damage they're causing. Spider mites are waiting for exactly this. Temperatures above 85 and dropping humidity. June creates those conditions reliably across most growing regions. The mites themselves are nearly invisible to the naked eye, but their presence is readable before any leaf symptom becomes obvious. Turn a leaf over and look at the underside along the midrib and in the junction between the midrib and the secondary veins. Fine webbing at that junction is the diagnostic sign. The stippling on the upper leaf surface comes after the colony is already well established. Catching this in the first week of infestation versus the third week is the difference between a simple water knockdown and needing a miticide with a pre-harvest interval you'll track for the rest of the season. A hard stream of water aimed at leaf undersides every 2 to 3 days breaks up young colonies before they establish. If chemical control becomes necessary, use a product specifically labeled for spider mite control and always follow the label instructions for edible crops. Aphids cluster at new growth tips and the undersides of young leaves near the top of the plant. A small colony found early often resolves without intervention because predatory insects locate it within days. A heavy infestation that's been building for 2 or 3 weeks without attention is harder to manage because the predator population hasn't caught up. The habit worth building is a weekly underleaf inspection covering 3 zones of each plant: the newest growth, the middle canopy, and a few leaves close to the soil. 5 minutes per bed. You're not looking for a crisis. You're looking for the first few individuals that tell you something is beginning. And here's the frustrating part. Even if you've solved watering and pest problems, one hidden mistake can still cut production dramatically. Plants spaced too close stop being individual plants and start forming a shared environment. Foliage overlaps, air stops moving through the canopy, and humidity builds between the leaves even on dry days. Fungal spores are already around your garden. What matters is whether your plants are creating the conditions for them to take off. Removing the lower 6 to 8 inches of leaves from tomato and pepper plants opens the base to airflow and reduces the moisture that accumulates on foliage near the soil. This is ventilation. Training cucumber vines vertically, removing leaves that cross over each other or rest against the soil, keeps the interior dry. The early signs of fungal problems in this microenvironment almost always appear on the oldest, lowest leaves first. A slight yellowing at the leaf margin, a pale water-soaked spot that hasn't turned brown yet, a faint powdery coating you might mistake for dust. Removing affected leaves early before symptoms become widespread often slows the spread significantly and is more effective than any spray program applied after the problem has moved through half the canopy. One signal June gives clearly, if you're paying attention, is bitterness in cucumbers. Cucumbers that taste bitter before they've reached full size are under stress, typically inconsistent watering or root zone heat. The compound responsible increases when the plant is stressed during fruit development. Picking at 6 to 7 inches before the skin starts yellowing prevents most of it, but bitterness is also a prompt to check what's happening in the soil before the next flush develops. Zucchini setting fruit that rots at the blossom end before reaching 4 inches indicates poor pollination. Squash flowers are open and receptive for only a few hours each morning. Hand pollination with a soft brush, moving pollen from a male flower to the center of a female, takes 30 seconds and resolves it in most cases. If you've been watching young fruit abort repeatedly and blaming the weather, this is worth trying before anything else. Keeping cucumbers, beans, and zucchini picked consistently every 2 to 3 days holds the plant in active production. A zucchini left to grow past 12 inches, a cucumber allowed to turn yellow on the vine, both signal the plant to stop initiating new fruit. The harvest is already complete as far as the plant is concerned. Removing mature fruit before that point keeps the biological pressure toward production in place throughout the rest of the season. Most June harvest losses don't come from one bad event. They come from a series of small signals noticed and set aside. The dry petals at the base of the plant. The pale leaf that looked like it might need fertilizer. The slightly bitter cucumber from 2 weeks ago. The flower that dropped clean without leaving any pollen behind. Each one is direct information about what the plant is experiencing right now, not what it's going to look like in 3 weeks. Check the flowers this week. Turn the leaves over, put your hand under the mulch and feel the soil temperature 4 inches down. Count the fruit that's actively setting and compare it to 2 weeks ago. That's a 10-minute inspection, and what you find in those 10 minutes determines what your harvest looks like in August. If this helped you catch a problem before it cost you harvest, hit the like button so more gardeners can find it. Subscribe for practical weekly growing tips. Share this with another gardener who's battling summer heat, and leave a comment with the crop that's giving you the biggest challenge this June.